I've had a lot of issues with this most recent season of Stranger Things. From poor pacing to flat out bad writing, the biggest issue was the brand new additions to the ever-growing roster of characters. I'm going to go through the main 5 we were introduced to this season, and I'll be going into why they're inferior to those introduced in the earlier seasons. Starting off with the 2 I have the least amount of problems with, Yuri and Enzo. Enzo is quite forgettable. He shares a few scenes with Hopper that were almost interesting. I did find Hopper's monologue to be quite overdramatic, and it's made even worse by the fact that it doesn't really have much relevancy in later episodes. Getting back to Enzo, he does disappear at the end of the last episode. Considering the elongated length of that episode, you'd think they'd give him a little bit more closure than what we got, because, well, we don't know if his family's okay and if he even got back to them. Surely he's a criminal now, but I guess it doesn't matter. Yuri is your typical criminal or con man with a heart of gold. I think? I'm not even sure. Either that, or he just really loves Russia. Yuri is one of this season's many comic relief characters. Luckily, he does have some admittedly humorous lines.
What is the furthest Katinka has ever flown?
For me, she is still a virgin. Not real Katinka, goodness, no.
He does represent the shift in tone these last 2 series have had when you compare them to the darker and more somber first 2 seasons. His development does seem to be crammed into the last episode though. I'm not even sure if it is development though. He doesn't exactly change. He just agrees to help everyone because Enzo convinces him that by helping them, Russia will be safe from the upside down. At least Yuri is funny, and that's roughly all he's got going for him. Getting to the 3 I have the biggest gripes with now. Let's talk about Eddie, who has become a fan favourite. He's definitely the best of a rotten bunch. Much like Yuri, they forced his character development into the last episode, which was quite a shame. As soon as he started rambling about not running away this time, which was something that they established in a prior episode that he regrets running away after Chrissy's death, but I could tell that the Duffer Brothers were gonna kill him off as they heavy-handedly wrapped up his very basic character arc. You really shouldn't be able to tell when a writer's gonna kill off a character like that. Eddie's genuinely a likeable character. I think he was just lazily written more often than he wasn't, which is ultimately his biggest downfall. Next up is easily the absolute worst character in not only Stranger Things 4, but the entire Stranger Things series, Argyle. He's a stereotype, plain and simple. He's the stoner character, which is one of the dullest possible character archetypes you could possibly include in your work. I can't tell if he's intended to be the audience surrogate or not. I was thinking this because he's being introduced to everything for the first time and being bewildered by it. Yet this doesn't really work because it's season 4. Nobody is going to start with this season, so this theory doesn't really work for me. He's only there because the characters need to make their way back to Hawkins somehow, as well as providing Eleven with the salt bath in the last episode. And well, that's basically all he does. The rest of the time he's serving as incredibly unfunny comic relief, and reminding the viewer that smoking weed is his entire personality. Argyle is almost everything wrong with the last 2 seasons of Stranger Things. I really don't like this character. Lastly, I'd like to discuss the character with the most potential, but was ultimately squandered by the amateur hour writing and winds up being a waste of everyone's time. Jason could have been a brilliant character. He reminded me of Steve from the first season. He's a sort of stand-up dude that makes stupid and harmful mistakes, whilst being partially justified. When you put yourself in his shoes, you can understand why he's acting the way he does. Similar to how Steve smashes Jonathan's camera because he believes Jonathan was spying on him and Nancy. Steve's motivations add up, as well as Jason's. The difference is that there's no consequences for Jason's actions. Jason doesn't accept the fact that he didn't know Chrissy as well as he thought he did. He could have become an incredibly sympathetic character, but instead the Duffer Brothers just kill him. I remember thinking that was quite harsh, as after all, he's supposed to be just some kid in high school. Jason is only there to poke fun at how the hysteria surrounding D&D being a gateway drug to Satanism for kids in the the 80s or whatever. It's just to make fun of that. I think Jason's a good example of how lazy the writing has been this season. Much like Argyle, Jason ends up being a bland stereotype. These characters are inferior to the ones we met in the first season but they're bland stereotypes. The early days of Stranger Things seem to try and subvert those 80s stereotypes and tropes, and with each subsequent season, they gradually stop subverting them and just straight up use them. I hope the quality of Stranger Things 5 is better than 4. This season solidifies that Stranger Things keeps getting worse with each season. A downward spiral of stereotypes and tropes is what I fear lies ahead for Stranger Things Season 5.